Project Darwin Incorporated is proud to introduce a new and exciting concept, a geologic model that is being developed as a study tool for this unique property. Project Darwin is located in the isolated region of Southeast California. Inyo County, known as the adventure capital of the world, is a land of magnificent natural diversity. On the western border looms the Sierra Mountains with Mount Whitney, 14,450 feet of towering granite, the highest peak in the lower 48 states. To the east lies Death Valley, 285 feet below sea level, the lowest point in the United States, a barren land from which only the hardiest have survived. Inyo County offers a full spectrum of adventure and involvement, from the absolute stillness and peace of its deserts to the awesome wind-whipped granite peaks. The oldest life forms in the world, the Great Basin bristlecone pines, call this area home. This truly is a land of great contrasts. With a population base of 18,000, surprisingly only 1.5% of the county is privately owned. Though sparsely populated, this land is not untouched. The China Lake Naval Weapons Center lies to the south and is the site of live fire training sessions and weapon development. The roar of jets is a common sound. In addition, thousands of tourists travel through this area, visiting the many mining ghost towns as well as backpacking, hang gliding over the barren Owens Lake, or skiing in the Sierras. Hollywood filmmakers and advertising agencies routinely capture the sights of the Alabama hills and surrounding areas in their creative adventures. In the heart of Inyo County lies the historic mining district of Darwin. This area has seen mining activity for nearly 150 years by prospectors and mining companies in search of the lead and silver which lies beneath its surface. Once boasting a population of over 5,000, in its time a greater population than Los Angeles, now only a few remain. What made this land so unique for mineral production is the geological contrast of the area. From the highest point of land in the contiguous United States to the lowest is a distance of only 64 miles. Along those 64 miles are found dramatic contrasts in topography, climate and geology unequaled throughout the world. Also found along that line is the Darwin Mine, the focus of our geologic model. Our traverse starts at the glacier-carved peaks of the Mount Whitney crest, 14,495 feet above sea level. These soaring granite spires form the eastern front of the Sierra Nevada mountain range, with lofty peaks rising sharply from the floor of the Owens Valley over 8,000 feet below. The eastern front reveals the steeply sloping Owens Valley Fault, which separates bedrock of the Sierra Nevada from alluvial fill in the Owens Valley. The fault serves as a conduit for volcanic materials to move to the surface and form cinder cones or lava flows of recent age. On its way to the surface, the liquid rock sheds minerals and interacts with the country rock, forming ore deposits or metamorphic zones. These same structures are found across the basin and range, which accounts for many of the mineral deposits where mine sites are located. On the west side of the mountains, the rivers drain into the San Joaquin Valley and eventually the Pacific Ocean. On the east side, the rivers drain to huge lake beds where the sun evaporates them, forming salt flats. None of the rivers on the east side drain into the ocean, which is why it is called the Great Basin. The Owens Valley is the first of a series of valleys with ancient lakes visible in their troughs, as is the Panamint Valley, Death Valley, and the Great Salt Lake. On this east side of the Sierra Mountains, the Basin and Range physiographic province begins. The Basin and Range is characterized by steep-sided parallel mountain ranges, separated by relatively narrow parallel valleys. Block-faulted mountain ranges of crystalline bedrock rise abruptly from the narrow alluvial-filled valleys. Local relief is tremendous, with some areas having in excess of 11,000 feet difference from the peaks to the valleys. Each mountain range is a fault block which has either been lifted up or the valleys between dropped down along the faults. These movements are geologically young, having occurred mostly in the last few million years, and in places they still go on. The Darwin Hills are one example of a basin and range type block-faulted mountain range, inside of which is located the Darwin Mine. The Darwin Mine is actually a group of independent mining claims which were consolidated. The development of the extensive underground workings occurred as the old prospects and mines were linked to the main workings of the Darwin Mine. Eventually, the underground workings spanned an area of about 2 square miles and spread over 1,900 vertical feet in 14 sublevels. As you look at the Darwin Hills, the mine extends under most of the southern portion of the range. It is estimated that over 150 miles of tunnels and drifts are present within the Darwin Mine. As you tour with us through this massive project, the size and scope of this operation are hard to comprehend. Huge drifts carved by past mining activities are commonplace, with railroad track connecting most of the tunnels to the main shaft areas from which ore cars carried the rich ore to the surface. In the period from 1875 to 1951, an estimated 117,566,900 pounds of lead, 52,124,947 pounds of zinc, 1,489,396 pounds of copper, 7,630,492 ounces of silver, and 5,913 ounces of gold were produced at the combined mines of the Darwin Hills. The structure of the Darwin Hills is strongly controlled by deformation of the Paleozoic strata, which occurred in the Mesozoic era, and more recent structure controlled by basin and range-type block faulting. Ancient structure includes folded and faulted Paleozoic rocks, which outcrop at many locations in the Darwin Hills. More recent structure includes the block faulting, which uplifts the Darwin Hills and downdrops the adjacent valleys. No evidence of recent faulting in the form of offsets in recent alluvial fill materials is observed at the Darwin mine site or in the Darwin Hills. The Death Valley and Furnace Creek fault systems, which border Death Valley, are seismically very active, and evidence of recent movement is observed at many locations where alluvial fans are offset by fault motion. The Owens Valley and Death Valley fault systems seem to be the most active in the area, forming a relatively quiet area between which the Darwin Hills are located. Tension which builds up in the Earth's crust is relieved regularly by fault movement on the Owens Valley, Death Valley, and Garlock fault systems, making the Darwin Hills one of the quietest spots in the world in terms of average annual seismic activity. Rocks at the Darwin Mine consist of hard crystalline marbles, hornfels, and granites. The rocks are separated by an ancient thrust fault, the Davis Thrust, which offsets Paleozoic rocks of the Darwin Skarn. A more recent intrusion, the Darwin Stock, has left mineralized zones near the contact of the granite and the Paleozoic rocks. Many of the economic quantities of minerals found in the Darwin Hills are associated with the contact of the Darwin Stock and the Paleozoic rocks. The history of the Darwin Mine is a very colorful one, which began in the 1850s when Mexican miners erected small adobe furnaces to treat rich oxidized lead-silver ores that they found in shallow workings. In the years to come, Mormons, as well as other prospectors, combed these barren hills in search of fortune. It was December 1874 when the town of Darwin was laid out and named after Dr. E. Darwin French, who prospected the area in search of the Lost Gunsight Mine. By the late 1870s, Darwin had become Inyo County's most important mining district and its largest town. 3 smelters had been built, and the town had saloons, hotels, general stores, a newspaper, and a population of over 5,000 hardy souls. But the boom soon turned to bust. By 1880, the town's population had been reduced to 85 due to a national economic downturn as well as a major fire that engulfed most of the business district. With the exception of stagecoach and Wells Fargo traffic from Death Valley, the town remained quiet until World War I. At this time, the 6,300-foot Radior Tunnel was constructed, linking several of the mines together. By the late 1930s, all of the major mines had been consolidated under single ownership. In 1945, the Anaconda Copper Company acquired the property, and it soon became California's largest lead producer, accounting for over 2/3 of the state's production, and was the nation's 4th largest producer of silver. Due to economic reasons in the late 1970s, the Anaconda Company leased the property to various mining companies and eventually sold the property. Mining was attempted several times, but with little or no success. The Darwin mines now stand inactive, waiting for the next phase of history to unfold. Mining activities of the past have left their scars on the Darwin site, but cleanup activities have transformed the landscape surrounding this facility. Reclamation activities began under the guidance of the Anaconda Company and were continued by the Blue Range Mining Company. Exposed mine shafts were sealed and fenced to prevent access. In addition to these efforts, several mine shafts were backfilled to eliminate any chance of entry. The once abandoned mill building and process area were dismantled and removed to eliminate any potential hazards to the environment, wildlife, or humans. The large antiquated crusher was dismantled and preserved for future use in other mining operations. A professional environmental cleanup firm was hired to bring down the large mill complex. Strict environmental procedures were followed in the disposal of all materials that might be deemed as a potential threat to the land. The tailings piles, byproducts of the mining process, were also reclaimed. A layer of topsoil was placed over the tailings, then planted with a state-approved seed mix consisting of native vegetation designed for a high browse value for wildlife. An extensive testing and monitoring program was implemented to ensure that any defect levels were maintained below state-approved limits. The historic character of the mine was preserved by allowing the numerous old housing facilities and shop buildings to remain. Reclamation activities which will benefit future generations as well as our own were completed in the summer of 1995. The Darwin mine facility may be inactive, but it is not isolated. This facility is accessible by paved highway that travels from Lone Pine to the Death Valley Junction. Highway 190 is a main traffic corridor that winds its way through several mountain ranges and valley floors, providing motorists an east-west route to Death Valley National Park as well as the Panamint Valley. Tourists from around the globe visit this area year-round to experience the desolation that the Mojave Desert provides. Darwin has other traffic as well. The China Lake Naval Weapons Center borders the mine to the south. This live-fire training center is a high-security area with manned guard stations surrounding its perimeter. The roar of naval aircraft is constant above Darwin as naval pilots train with live weaponry, destroying mock enemies with the explosion of high-tech weapons. This activity has been ongoing for years. The Darwin Mine, a colorful past, a promising future. A geologic model situated in a land of vast contrasts and activities. The future study of this project will reveal a wide variety of possible uses that will benefit our country's needs. This overall view of the facility reveals many promising characteristics: the absence of major seismic activity, the stability of the rock formations, as well as the absence of groundwater in the mine or the surrounding area. This developed mine site has seen activity for over 150 years, plus it's easily accessed by a major east-west corridor. The possibilities are endless for this well-developed site, which lies in the sparsely populated desert country of Southeast California. Project Darwin Incorporated.